Hello, and welcome to the Gay Cruise and Travel Podcast with me, Jess Joey T. All right, today we are back to the Gay Cruise Travel Advice. If you've been away for a little bit, if you haven't listened to the last few episodes, I like to remind people sometimes this podcast isn't only about gay cruises. It's not just about Atlantis cruises. It's also about other types of cruises. It's also about travel as well. So I always wanted to, talk about various travel topics. And over the last few episodes, I've branched out a little bit. So we talked about Airbnbs and hotels. We've talked about miles and points. We talked about credit cards. We talked about getting a backup cell phone. That was the most recent episode. If you missed those and you're interested in more than just cruises, go give those a listen. But after a few episodes of not talking about cruises, we are talking about cruises today. One of the most frequent questions or types of advice I'm asked to talk about are from solo cruisers, and especially those solo cruisers who are also new cruisers as well. And a lot of them, because they are going onto a cruise, a gay cruise usually, for the first time, not only are they a bit nervous because, it's like doing a couple of brand new things at the same time. Not only are you doing a cruise for the same time, and just the concept of going on a cruise, if you've never been on a cruise before, things kind of work quite differently. It's a very different environment. And to throw on top of that, doing a gay cruise, which itself adds another layer of whatever you want to call it, So I get a lot of questions and comments and DMs and things like that asking, what is it like to go on a gay cruise solo? It's just me. I'm not going with anyone else. And then also we have people that are new cruisers that, I'm going on a gay cruise for the first time. Do you have any tips or things like that? So today, I like to talk about what a gay cruise is kind of like when you go on just solo. You're just going on a cruise by yourself. And more specifically, I want to talk a bit more about, what are some of the activities you can partake in when you go on a cruise just by yourself as a singleton with the intention of meeting people. Because, when all these people ask me about the advice, they are also asking things like, is it easy to meet people on a gay cruise? What are some tips for making friends on a gay cruise, right? Because I think it's fine if you want to go on a cruise by yourself and you want to have more of a kind of quiet, peaceful time. You're not necessarily looking to party, and you might not necessarily be looking to meet tons of people or be super social. You might not be a people person. You might be an introvert. And I think that's fine. I've said many times before, you can do a cruise whatever way that you would like. But for the people that would like some tips and advice and kind of want to know if you were to go on to a cruise for the first time as a singleton by yourself, what kind of activities might I be looking for if I were to want to kind of put myself out there a little bit and meet some people? What does it look like if I go on a cruise by myself, as a solo traveler, as a solo cruiser? So today, that is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about basically what are some typical activities that I would encourage people to look into as solo cruisers, especially for those solo cruisers that would like some guidance and advice on, when they're on board and when they're sailing, what are things that they can do to kind of make it a little bit easier to meet other cruisers on the ship. The advice I have here, I wrote a whole outline for this. It really starts way back before you even hopped on a plane, before you even arrive at the port city where the ship will set sail from. And this is not necessarily advice specific to solo cruisers or new cruisers. This is just generally good advice. I always, myself, like to make sure I tie up any loose ends at work so that when I'm on vacation, I don't have any lingering worries about work, or I don't have sudden thoughts that come in my head about, oh, did I forgot to email this person, or did I forget to hand this project off, things like that. So whatever it is that you need to tie up in terms of loose ends at work, do that while you're still at work before you are going on PTO or take your time off, and then let people know that you're going on vacation. I like to do as much of my chores and errands as possible so I don't have those hang over my head, especially like to come back to a relatively clean and tidy house after a vacation and after a cruise, because, the cruises are lots of fun. And even if it's not a party cruise, just sometimes the act of travel, especially if you've been away for a little bit, that does tire you out a little bit at the end of the trip. And it's kind of nice to come back to a pretty clean house. So whatever you need to do while you're still at home to like tie up loose ends at work and to just clean and tidy your house a little bit, any chores and errands that have been a little bit overdue, get those out of the way so that, when you're on vacation, when you do hop on a plane, when you do get to the port city, it's just a little bit less mental baggage, I guess, that you have in the back of your head. And one thing I want to say about this is I see a lot of people very stressed out about packing for a cruise. And there's no need to be stressed out. Obviously, packing is kind of a chore for most people. And if you're packing for a cruise and you've never been on a cruise before, there is going to be some amount of stress. But as best as possible, don't sweat the details about having to pack every single thing you might need, and maybe some stuff that you probably don't need on a cruise. One of the lines that I like the best from any TV show is from this sitcom series in the UK. It's called Absolutely Fabulous. You might have heard about this TV series before. And one of the lines from that TV show is tickets, money, passports. So it's basically the main character, whenever she leaves on a trip, she's kind of a forgetful person, and there's always a scene where she rushes out the door, and then 5 seconds later, she has to rush back into the house before getting into the car because she's left her tickets and her wallet and her passport behind. So, and then she yells, tickets, money, passport, tickets, money, passport. And I kind of use that as like a little last minute checklist when I leave the house for the airport. It's like, do I have my tickets? Do I have my wallet? Do I have like my credit cards? Do I have passport? If you have those three things, you can fix a lot of other problems. And it kind of sort of covers if you have, forgot to pack a thing here or a thing there. If you have your tickets and you have your wallet and you have your passport, if you have forgot to pack something else, it's probably okay. Anyways, I do have a boarding days tips video if you are interested in some of my last minute tips for how you can pick up some last minute items while you are at the port city after you get there. So I will link it down below. So feel free to check that out. The second thing I want to talk about is the mindset that you have going into the cruise is pretty important, I think. I think it's very important. And also the way you kind of project and carry your mindset externally. I think maybe that's some of my ESL coming out. It's kind of like how you project or how you carry yourself. Maybe that's a more accurate way of saying it. Something I like to remind myself and also tell other people is remember that every passenger on the ship is there to be on vacation. So everybody wants to have a good time when they're on vacation. Everybody wants to relax on their vacation. Everybody wants to have fun on their vacation. Just kind of keep that in mind. It's a little bit of a exercise where like sometimes you put yourself in someone else's shoes. I think that's a helpful thing to kind of keep in mind. Every passenger on the cruise ship is there to have a good time. Everyone's on vacation. Everyone wants to have fun. This is a little bit of a hot take, a little controversial, but I don't believe in having to say hi or make conversation with everyone you meet. I think it's very easy and popular advice to give, to say, oh, well, like, say hi to everyone you meet. Say hi to everyone that passes by. I don't subscribe to that. There are people sometimes where they're very shy. You know, if the topic of this video is something you're interested in, there's a decent likelihood that you have some level of nervousness or shyness going into the cruise. You might be, you know, more of an introvert than an extrovert. Maybe you hate small talk, you're not good at it. I don't think it actually works like that in reality. I feel like sometimes people say like, yeah, just say hi to everyone. I think that's easy to say that. I don't think you should expect that. And I don't take it personally. Like if you say hi to someone and they don't immediately say hi back, again, someone's super shy, someone's nervous, you caught them like a little bit off guard, they weren't paying attention. Just don't take it personally. Sometimes I see people say, I was on the cruise and people weren't like, there were some people that were not super friendly. And when I dug more and more into it, but sometimes someone makes a comment and then there's like replies and then there's like a little thread going. Sometimes what ends up happening is, it's not that people were being rude to this person. It's just that this person expected everybody to make small talk with them when he was going to start small talk with someone else. And not everybody is like that. So it's just a little bit about, yes, having an open mind. You know, if you are the type of person that likes to have small talk, likes to say hi to people, be yourself and go do it. But also keep in mind that not everybody is going to be as comfortable saying hi to everyone as you or someone else might be. And just remember, everybody's on vacation. Everybody wants to have a good time. Everybody's there to have fun, and there's no bad intent there. So don't take it personally if you say a quick hi to someone passing by and, you know, maybe you didn't even get a response. I don't feel like people are on vacation to ignore other people. I don't think people are intentionally ignoring you if you say hi to them and they don't reply back. You know, for me, it's also awkward. Like if I'm passing someone going the other way, like the speed at which I'm sometimes walking and like they say hi, and by the time I realize, you know, what's happening, or like I'm already passing by them, it's a little awkward to like say hi back because we're going different directions. You know, that could be like a skit on SNL, honestly. But people are not being mean to you if you find that, oh, not everyone's saying hi back. I've never been on a cruise where everybody is saying hi to everyone else. So anyways, okay, on to the actual advice for, you know, the things and activities that I think you should look into as a solo cruiser who's possibly a new cruiser as well. If you are arriving into the port city early, which I've mentioned a million times, I strongly recommend don't try to fly in the day of the cruise, because in case your flight gets delayed or whatnot, you might actually be late showing up to the terminal and you might miss the cruise ship. So if you are getting to the port city at least a day before, see if there are any pre-cruise meetups, because for a lot of the Atlantis cruises, for example, it's pretty popular for there to be like the afternoon before or the night before for there to be some meetups for people who have booked on that cruise, who are kind of have flown into the port city. It could be at a club or a bar or some other kind of social gathering place, restaurant, whatever type of a thing. And that could be a great opportunity to kind of start meeting at least like a few people that are also going on the cruise before the cruise has even set sail. So if you're comfortable doing that, that is one great option. Now, on boarding day, and I'm using the Atlantis cruises as a reference, they will usually throw a sail away party, and it starts kind of before the ship has even pushed back from the dock. So on the first day, there will be music and drinks and things like that up on the pool deck. And that's where the sail away party usually is. And it's so that people can kind of watch and be outside and kind of watch the ship push back from the terminal and the port and sail away into the ocean, hence the term sail away party. And that's a great way to meet some people in a really casual atmosphere. You know, on that first day, as the ship is being pushed back, everybody's very excited. But it's just kind of like the official start of the cruise when the ship actually gets going and starts sailing into the water and away from the dock. So that's like a great event to go to start meeting other people. There are drinks, there are bars on the pool deck, obviously. Now, I want to talk about meal times, because meal times, I think, is a trickier activity, and we all need to eat, obviously. But I think meals can also be an excellent opportunity to meet other people. For me, before I had figured out kind of some of these tips, I found mealtime to be like an awkward, daunting time to try to meet other people as a solo cruiser. But here are things you can do during meal times, especially during dinner. That's a great time to kind of dine with others. Okay, if we're going to the main dining, okay, most ships have a main dining hall or a main dining room. Atlantis, for example, pretty much all their sailings, they'll have an option to sit different people that don't know each other together at a larger table of a table that holds 8 or 10 people. With the idea of that is so that, you have different parties of people that don't know each other. You sit them all at a table, they'll start mingling, they'll start talking, okay? So that's a really great option. And on most Atlantis cruises, when you go to the main dining at the host station, they'll usually ask, would you like a private table, or would you like to join a bigger table with some other people and meet some new friends? That's kind of like my standard canned response when I volunteer for Team Atlantis to kind of pitch it. When I do volunteer for Atlantis and, I'm assigned to help out with the dinner service at the main dining, I always advertise that. And I kind of have some canned lines to, tell people about it. Because I think that's a really excellent way to get to know people. And, the other people that are at the table, they've also agreed to be seated at a table with strangers, people they don't know, with the intent of mingling and chatting and meeting other people and making new friends, okay? Now, some of the specialty dining restaurants, look for some restaurants that have family-style dining. There might be a teppanyaki grill type of a restaurant on the ship that you're on. Obviously, restaurants vary by the ship. And that's kind of sort of like a family-style dining type of arrangement. And that's great for, sometimes you get a bit of a show from the chef, but then you're also kind of seated, with other people. And naturally, when you're seated beside people and you're kind of doing family-style dining, that pretty naturally leads to just conversation and small talk and things like that. So if you do want to kind of try out a specialty restaurant, but as a solo cruiser, it's sometimes you might feel a little awkward to go to a specialty restaurant by yourself. Look for specialty restaurant options on your particular ship that do more of a family-style dining. Because I think that's actually a pretty cool way to both experience a different type of cuisine and also to meet some new people at the same time. Now, I love a buffet. I love to go to the buffet, okay? The buffet is a little bit trickier to kind of meet people. Honestly, if you're the type of person where you feel comfortable just walking up to someone and just making small talk and sitting down with them, I feel like a lot of people that are more introverts, they would probably be okay with that if you are okay to make the first move. And I think the buffet is one of those establishments on a ship where you can kind of just walk up to someone randomly and say hey, may I sit down and have a meal with you? And that will be okay. That's for those people that are more extroverted and are comfortable doing that. Now, I realize there are a lot of people that are not going to be comfortable just walking up to someone with a plate of food and say, hey, can I sit down and have a meal with you? And that's usually more me, people that are more shy, more introverted. Now, this might be a little bit niche, but hear me out. So if you want to go to the buffet and you want to make it look like you can be approached, but you're not comfortable approaching others, there are ways to make yourself look like, the term I was thinking in my head for some reason is there are ways to make yourself look like a target in the buffet. And it's kind of all body language. So what I do, if I want to go to the buffet and I maybe want to meet some people, I basically want to make it look like people can approach me. I have gotten the feedback from some people, and some of them are now my friends, that I can look standoffish and I can look kind of not approachable. I'm aware of that. Because a lot of times when I'm having a meal by myself, I'm not always looking to like have other people come up to me, but sometimes I'm there to eat, like just to eat and not to necessarily socialize. And it just turns out that, hey, I just wanted something at the buffet. I just wanted to like eat and get out. And that's okay. But if you wanted to go to the buffet and you're not comfortable with just like walking up to people and say, hey, can I sit down with you and have a meal with you? At least make yourself look approachable. Okay? Don't bury your head into your phone. Okay? Get off your phone. When someone's on their phone, they don't look approachable. Okay? What I like to do is I look for counter height seating. And not all ships have this, but quite a few ships in the buffet, they have counter height seating. It's like a huge, gigantic kitchen island. It's this counter height table that you can probably sit like 6 or 8 people on like either side. And I think that's a great place to sit if you want to kind of casually meet other cruisers or have like a meal with other cruisers at the buffet. That's what I would do. Put your phone away. It's very tempting, I know, when you are eating by yourself at the buffet to like whip out your phone because, at least for me anyways, I can't just be like sitting there and be eating something and not doing something else. That's probably a very me-specific problem. When I'm at home, I'm eating something, I'm on my computer, I'm on my phone, I'm watching TV. I'm not just eating. It's very rare for me to just eating and like staring at the wall. But again, try to put your phone away. What I like to do sometimes, though, on a ship in the buffet is I'll get a seat that faces out into the window. So I'm just like looking at the ocean. Sometimes on a sea day, in the middle of the day, maybe for lunch or something like that, or even for like an early dinner, looking out into the ocean as you're having a meal. For me, I don't know, there's something so calming and relaxing about just having a leisurely meal while like just peering out into the vastness of the ocean that looks like it goes on forever and ever. Yeah, so I think we just get a seat where you're just looking at the ocean, you're looking out into the window. You don't have your eyes and head buried into a phone, and you look so much more approachable. And sometimes people will actually come up. And, you know, if you do want to make it look like people can come up to you, take your time. Don't be like scarfing down your food. We've all seen, well, I've seen the people at the buffet where like, I can tell when that person is here just to have a quick meal because they need to go somewhere else. The speed at which they are gobbling up the food, like, I do not want to interrupt that person. They are literally here for the shortest amount of time possible just to eat for sustenance, and they need to like go to a show or go somewhere else or go to an orgy or like whatever it is. So those are my tips for if you want to eat at the buffet and you want to like look approachable, but you're not to the comfort level of walking up to a random stranger at the buffet and just like asking them if I could sit down and have a chat with them and have a meal with them. Snack time, okay? It's not just breakfast, lunch, and dinner, okay? There are a lot of venues on the ship where you can grab like a mid-afternoon snack. Look on your particular ship and see where those places are, but there could be like a hot dog place, an ice cream place. Get a coffee, like a cafe or something. There may be like a pizza place. And a lot of those types of venues are great for just like randomly socializing in like a really casual, informal way. Because, you know, when you go to main dining or like a specialty restaurant, it's like a sit down thing and you're there for like the whole meal service. But to just grab a hot dog or grab an ice cream cone or grab a slice of pizza, it's a very informal, casual thing. You're like in and out of there. There's no like big commitment. There's always people snacking. A lot of times, you know, those snack type places are free. So I think that's also a great way to, you know, when you are looking for a snack, just look for like one of these places and just hang out there a little bit. Don't just like grab your slice of pizza and go back to your room. You know, take your time, relax. Remember, everyone's on vacation, so are you. Just take your time. If you're getting a slice of pizza from the pizza place, just sit there. Just sit at one of the tables at the pizza place and just take your time. People watch a little bit, you know, grab a soda, grab a water, whatever. Just take your time having your slice of pizza. When you do that, you do look more approachable, and it's more likely that people might come up to you and like say hi or do whatever. All right. That's my mealtime advice. Let me know if you think my buffet advice is like useless or shit or crap. But you know, I really do think like it takes a lot of, I think it is not the majority of people that can go up to someone at a buffet and just be like, hey, may I sit down with you? Anyways, All right, moving forward. Besides restaurants, there are also a lot of bars on most cruise ships. And bars, I think, are great for socializing, okay? A lot of people go to bars on land because it's a great venue for socializing. And a lot of ships have several different types of bars. You can have like a regular bar where it's just like drinks, piano bars, sports bars, a poolside bar up on the pool deck. There are bars there too. Any kind of bar. Look at the ship. There's always like several different places where you can go get a drink where there's a bar, and people are always hanging around the bars. Like whenever any bar is open, there's always people there. Okay, you don't even need to be like a heavy drinker to do that. You can get a virgin cocktail or like be drinking soda or like something else, but the atmosphere of being at a bar is really conducive for socializing. If you like drinking anyways, that's easy. But like, even if you are not really like a drinker, just the atmosphere and the setting of a bar, even if you're not going to get any sort of alcoholic drink, I think is really great for socializing. And most of the bars are open most of the time. So I think there's always like a bar that's open somewhere on every ship. All right, moving away from food and drinks, look for socialization events in the daily newsletter. So every cruise ship, there's going to be a newsletter that you get the night before or like you wake up to in the morning. And it's going to be a listing of every single activity that is going on that ship, like literally everything that is going on. Every cruise ship, every day, there's like dozens of things going on. There's always something for everyone. In addition to like you being able to like lounge by the pool or like kind of being able to eat and do your own thing, there's like a whole bunch of stuff going on, okay? With Atlantis, to use them as example, again, they will organize socialization events specifically on top of whatever the cruise line already offers. So there may be like a singles meetup or singles event if you are single. There may be meetups for veterans or for gamers or for bears or whatever. There's like a bunch of different types of events. Just look in the daily newsletter that you're going to get every single day and just check out what types of social events or meetups are happening that day. And if something kind of strikes your interest, something catches your eye, just go. And the great thing about those is those are usually hosted, but well, some of them are hosted in the sense that there might be a person from the charter company like Atlantis or from the cruise line that kind of sort of like is organizing it a little bit. Some of them are not hosted, where it's just like, if people want to go, they've designated a time and a location, but there's not any staff or anything like that. But I think I've been to a few of those, and I think those are a great way because usually they are themed around some sort of common interest that is drawing people to those events, and automatically you have an in. So if there was one for like gamers, like the reason that all of you are coming to this gamers meetup event is because you are all gamers, you're all into gaming, and automatically that's like a conversation starter for all of you, right? So those are also great, awesome events to look for. They should be in the newsletter, the daily newsletter that you're going to get every day while you are sailing on the cruise. All right. Do you know they can take classes and there are tours that you can take while you're on board the ship? I'm not talking about the shore excursions, which we'll get to a little bit later. That's also a great way to meet people as well. But while you're on board the ship, depending on the cruise line and depending on the particular ship that you're on, there's a bunch of different classes or tours or activities that you can do, okay? There are fitness classes, like you can do yoga or like stretching or spin class or anything like that. A lot of ships have culinary experiences or classes. So there might be like a cook with the chef or like a cooking demonstration or something like that. Most ships have casinos. I know the last cruise I was on, they were doing some like how to play tutorials in the casinos for people that, maybe you don't really gamble, but like you want to learn a new card game or something like that. And they actually had the people at the casino like run a demonstration, and they were teaching people how to play like, I'm not familiar with the games, like teaching people how to play blackjack or like whatever the thing is. There's sometimes some alcohol classes. There might be like some bartending classes or lessons. There might be like a wine pairing lesson or tutorial. Sometimes some ships have tours where you can tour like some behind the scenes operations of like how the ship works, maybe the engineering or the navigation, things like that. I just came across some Royal Caribbean ships. They have linen folding classes. So if you're on a ship, you sometimes will come back to your room after your cabin attendant has kind of tied up a little bit, and you might find like a swan that has been kind of crafted out of like a hand towel or something like that sitting on your bed. It's actually like really cute and like kind of cool. On some cruise lines or some ships, they would teach you how to fold linen, like a hand towel or whatever, into that swan that you saw when you came back to your room after a cabin attendant has spruced it up for you. That's like super interesting, right? Again, check the newsletter that you get. A lot of the activities are in there, but that's also another great way to just like meet other people and like have a cool experience that you're not going to get on land, or like learn something new as well. So look out for the classes, tours, things like that are available on your particular ship and on your particular sail lane. Now, these are in addition to the more typical types of activities you get on most cruise ships while you're on board. So there might be some sort of sports, ball, whatever thing, tennis, touchdowns, home bases, whatever. I don't do sports, but apparently there's sports on board, like mini golf. I did go-karting on a recent cruise because there's like a few cruise ships in the world where they have actual go-kart, like a go-kart track and real go-karts. I love driving, and like the fact that I could go-karting on a ship in the middle of the ocean was like so cool for me. So I did it for that reason. But it was interesting when we were lining up to like see other people socialize, because there's like, you have to wait a little bit, and like people are just like chatting and socializing and meeting each other. And then after you do the go-karting, you do your laps, they post your times on the screen. And then, that's also a way to like, looking at the times everyone's gathered around the screen, that's another chance to socialize as well. So even something like go-karting, which isn't really like on paper the best activity to do to socialize people, even there I was chatting with people. So like some ships have like wall climbing, ice skating, all sorts of different things, zip lines. So look at your particular ship. Again, look at that daily newsletter that you get every single day. Just look at some of the activities. And again, if something catches your eye, just say yes and just try it out. And if you don't like it, you can go do something else. You don't have to do that thing again. Now, we talked about some activities that are on the ship where you can meet some people, but there's also shore excursions as well. So obviously this depends on the ports of call or the places that the ship will stop by on your particular sailing. But shore excursions are very, very popular. A lot of times shore excursions will be listed before the ship sets sail in like the days and weeks leading up to the cruise. And depending on the ports of call that the ship is visiting, depending on the specific shore excursions that you're looking at, they might have different procedures for booking them. Sometimes you can book shore excursions or shore X's before the ship sets sail. Usually there's still room for some of them for you to book them after you've set sail, so you don't always have to do it beforehand. But that does vary depending on the specific shore X's you're looking at, depends on the ports of call, like the places where the ship is going to set sail. But those are some of the things you can kind of look forward to. And some of those are like really cool experiences depending on what's available. Now, let's talk about parties. I like to party. I'm talking about the dance parties that happen on the Atlantis cruises as an example. If you like to dance to music, I think this is easy, slam dunk. But even if you are not so much into the parties, not so much into the music, not as much into the dances, I would say you just check it out. The beauty about being on a cruise ship is if you go check out something and you don't like it, you just like go back to your room or go do something else. But there's like a million things you can do on the ship. The point is not to do everything, but there's like something for everyone. If you don't like this one event, this one activity that's happening right now that you went and checked out, there's probably like 10 other things at that moment going on a ship that you can go do instead. Okay, but yeah, just go check the party. You can people watch. A lot of people, if you're not like the dancing type, I always see lots of people that are like one level up from the pool deck, just, on the railings, on like the balcony above. And they're just having a drink and just people watching, just, looking down on the party and just like seeing other people have fun. And, they're just kind of like grooving to the music in their own way. They don't need to be on the dance floor, and that's fine. The bars are always open because it's like, that late evening hour is like prime time for the bars. And the bars are like alive and kicking at that time. there's always alcohol being served for the party. So that's also a great place where, like, you know, you don't mind having a little party in the background, but you're not the dancing type. Go to the bars that are near the party, and that's a great place to socialize as well. All right. I've got a couple of extra, kind of like bonus-ish tips and things that you can do. I think I've covered kind of the vast majority of like the big hitters. I've talked to you about how can you meet people during meal times, how you can meet people before you even like get on the ship, before the ship even sets sail. All the things you can do on board, not just because those are fun activities that you might want to do, but like these activities are also great ones where you can meet other people, like the meetup events, for example. I have one time been dragged on stage by a drag queen while I was watching a drag show on board an Atlantis cruise. If you go to my Instagram, my Just Joey T Instagram, I have it pinned, Miss Richfield, 1981. I love watching her shows whenever she's on board. That's a little funny bit. I won't give it away, but go to my Instagram and check that out. I have a little clip that someone else in the audience, they filmed that whole thing. And after my appearance on stage, this other passenger, super sweet guy, just turned to me. He was sitting near me in the audience and said, "Hey, I actually like took a video of you up on stage. Do you want it?" And he airdropped to me. So that was like super cool. And that's how I have that little video clip. But if you're up for it, if you are watching one of the many shows that happens on every cruise, and there's like a little audience participation segment that they have, and they're like, "Who wants to come?" You can put your hand up. And that's fun. I didn't put my hand up. I think I was chosen completely at random for that one. A lot of times they do little things by the pool during the daytime, especially on a sea day. I know Atlantis does this. When it's a sea day, a lot of people, you know, during like the afternoon hours, they are like lounging by the pool. It's very popular to just like sunbathe by the pool, chill by the pool, hang out by the pool, go into the pool, whatever you want to do on the pool deck. And Atlantis, they will have what they call pool games, or they'll do something on the pool. It's like a little bit of entertainment. And a lot of those are, you know, things that involve the audience, so you can volunteer and do something for that as well. Another thing I think is pretty easy to do. It may not be so easy to like volunteer yourself to be dragged on stage during a drag show, but don't hang out in your cabin so much. And this is maybe more for people that are very much homebodies. It might already kind of put you out of your comfort zone to even go on a cruise, to be traveling solo, to go on a gay cruise, all these things. And sometimes when people are kind of really going out of their comfort zone, sometimes there is a urge to kind of like pull back, to kind of race back to comfort. And what could happen for some people is that they're in this totally new, different environment, and that already like freaks them out a little bit. Especially for the introverts out there, it's easy for you to just like spend time in your cabin. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? But just be aware that if you're spending quite a bit of time in your cabin and having quite a lot of alone time, if that's your prerogative and like that's your MO, that's fine. But just ask yourself, is it driven by fear? Like, am I spending so much time in my cabin because I'm afraid to be socializing with other people? It's because you are uncomfortable putting yourself out there. And again, you can do your cruise however you want. Okay, but I know I have been on several cruises, but not just cruises, just like other trips where like, damn, I wish I wasn't scared at that time to have done this thing. And there have been times for me where like I was uncomfortable. I was just too scared to put myself out there. And instead of putting myself out there, I just like stayed in my room. And after the cruise was all over, and I recall those moments, the vast majority of the time, I would have chosen not to have stayed in my room. And the only thing I could have pointed to was fear. Like I was so uncomfortable putting myself out there in like a certain social situation. It was so easy. The easy option was to just like bail out and just be in the comfort of my home base, which is my cabin on the cruise. So just be honest with yourself. Just be honest with yourself. You know, if you find yourself spending quite a bit of time in your cabin as a solo cruiser, sometimes we do need that private time to like decompress. And especially for the people with more introverts, I know that I need a certain amount of alone time, especially on a cruise where things can get a little bit hectic. But I now know how to figure out whether I'm spending time in my room by myself because I need to recharge and have a little bit of that, time to myself, or if I'm there because of fear, because I'm not comfortable of putting myself out there. Deep down, I know which is which. I've learned how to be pretty honest with myself. So if you do happen to be in that situation on a cruise as a solo cruiser, it's fine to have some time to recharge, but also it's very difficult to put yourself out there. It's super difficult. It is very uncomfortable, but you sometimes just have to take like a little bit of a leap of faith. So instead of being in your cabin, if you feel like, hey, maybe I am spending a little too much time in my cabin just because I'm not comfortable being around other people, if you want to hang out, just hang out somewhere else. There are a lot of places on a ship where you can hang out that you don't need to be like doing anything in particular. We talked about a lot of activities that you can do, like things to actively be doing, taking a class or going on a tour, like wall climbing or water slides or whatever. But there are places on the ship where you can just chill and relax. There's some ships that have like libraries, that kind of like a reading room. Just go like chill by the pool, like grab a chair by the pool and just like sit and just, put some sunscreen on and grab your sunnies, grab your sunglasses, grab a drink and just like do nothing. You're not necessarily talking to people and socializing, but like at least you're kind of like out there with other people. So that's something I try to do myself, at least on the early cruises that I used to go on, like, many years ago before I'm less of a pro. Instead of letting myself hang out solo inside my cabin, I'll just hang out outside my cabin, like at least somewhere around other people, just to start getting comfortable with just being around strangers and just being comfortable with like, I don't have to like necessarily walk up and talk to anyone. Just building that confidence and comfort of like, it's okay to be around other people. That might be very niche advice just because, again, you all can't tell when I'm blabbing my mouth and running it on a podcast and on my YouTube. I come off as someone who's like very outspoken, very talkative, very extroverted. I'm doing this in the complete privacy of my house. There's no one around me. I just happen to be a talkative person, but I'm actually an introvert. And it's really like over the years that I've started to like come out of my shell more and more. I have never went to the buffet and like walked up to a random person and said, hey, can I sit down with you? I'm just not that type of a person. But over the years, I've learned to at least have like a more open mind when other people come up to me and say, hey, if they want to like have a quick dance with me or like, hey, they want to have a meal with me. I used to be like definitely afraid when people walk up to me, but at least over time is something I'm still working on. But like, hey, at least I know how to like put myself out there a little bit and be a little bit more open-minded when other people do approach me. All right. This is one of the longest podcast episodes that I've recorded in a little while. I have a lot of advice to give on this topic, as you probably can tell by now. If you're still listening by this time, there's going to be like a 45-minute podcast, but I hope some of these tips were useful for some of you. If not, hopefully I help you kill a little bit of time, or maybe I've helped some of you fall asleep by listening to this podcast. But this is really a topic that I regularly get asked about. New cruisers, solo cruisers, what's it like on the ship? What are things that I can do? How do I meet people on a cruise ship? So hopefully some of this will be helpful for some of you out there. But until next time, please subscribe to the podcast. Don't be a cheap bitch. It's free to subscribe. And then I will see you here for the next episode. But until then, bye y'all.